Hi, my name is John Miller, and I am the Chief Product Officer here at Hive Lighting. And I'm here today to talk about our Wasp Plasma Par. This is the Wasp Plasma Par, and what you see here is what comes in a Wasp Plasma Par kit. But before I begin talking in depth about the Wasp Plasma Par product, why don't I talk a little bit about Hive Lighting and about plasma technology itself. So plasma is a unique form of lighting technology, and it's based on a small argon gas bulb. And really plasma, the best way to think about it, is the tradition of arc lighting, but with the energy efficiencies of LEDs and the high output daylight of an HMI. So when I say a very small glass capsule, this is what I'm talking about. What you can see there is a tic-tac sized bulb. Inside of it is an argon gas blend. And this new technology offers a lot of advantages for film and television lighting. First, you have a single point high output light source. What's important about that is you get clean, crisp shadows, and you have the ability to do very long throw lighting, which is something we'll talk some more about when we talk about the Wasp Plasma Par. Along with that is the energy efficiencies. You have 50 to 90% less energy consumption per lumen produced. What that really means is that you're going to have twice as bright a light for the same amount of power, sometimes almost as much as 90% more efficient. Then you have a much longer bulb life. Because there's no electrodes or filaments, you have a very stable bulb. It's inert noble gas, it's not under pressure, which makes it very hard for it to be damaged, either through vibration or impact. But because there's no filaments or electrodes burning out, the bulb can last over 10,000 hours. It's a low heat, flicker-free, full spectrum, and it has the ability to vary its color temperature. But beyond all of those advantages, it's also less expensive. So when we think about plasma, really the advantages that we find are the ability to use it for slow motion, the ability to use it for high output lighting. So that means throwing light anywhere from 50 to 100 feet to over 500 feet if necessary. And we're talking about really high color quality, a full spectrum daylight solar simulator with the ability to vary its color between 4,800 to 7,000 degrees Kelvin. So what we've done with that technology is create a series of products. And the one we're going to talk about today is the Wasp Plasma Par. In this slide, you can see some of the different benefits of the product, as well as the different accessories that go along with it. And we'll highlight some of the key advantages of the Wasp Plasma Par. The Plasma Par is really designed to do a lot of what you're used to from a daylight or incandescent par. And probably the most obvious equivalency is the 400 watt HMI, the 575 watt HMI, and your 1,000 and 2,000 watt incandescents. But if you look directly at the 400 watt HMI, which we're doing here, there are some clear advantages. Probably the number one for the consumer is the lower purchase price. So the average HMI kit price that would involve lenses and power supplies, ballasts, header cables, bulbs, etc., is going to run you about $5,000 kit price. The exact same amount of accessories, kit price, bulb included, is going to run you only $3,500 for a Wasp Plasma Par list. Then there's the advantages not only of the lower upfront costs, but then the lower costs to keep the fixture running. So we have a over 10,000 hour bulb life, sometimes up to 30,000 hours. And with a HMI, if you're lucky, you're getting about 1,000 hours of output. So probably the other real advantage for the in the field situation is the much lower power draw. So if you're using US power, 120 volt power, you're only pulling 2.2 amps with a Plasma Par. The equivalent HMI output is going to take at least 4.5 amps. That means you can plug almost 4 times as many lights into US power sockets, all on the same circuit breaker. This gives you real advantages if you're in the field, if you're working in office space, if you're on a lower budget production, or if you just need to scale down the size of the distribution and power generation you plan on bringing to a set. Beyond that, and this is probably one of the biggest advantages that we have, and something that we'll highlight with the video, is the complete lack of flicker. So flicker-free can be a confusing term, but really the question is, what is the hertz rate that your light cycles at? And so without getting too scientific, basically the question is, on alternating current, which is what we have coming out of all of our power sockets, how often does the light turn on and off? For a standard light plugged into a standard US wall socket, you actually have a 60 hertz rate. That means it's turning on and off 60 times per second. And that's why you'll see certain lights start to flicker when you film them in slow motion. For a standard HMI, you have a hertz rate of about 300 hertz. That can effectively be flicker-free for some of your lighting needs. So if you're shooting at 120 frames per second, maybe that means you're not going to have any flicker. But if you're shooting any higher than that, you're going to have a very hard time preventing your HMI from flickering. On the flip side, the Wasp Plasma Par has a cycle rate of 450 megahertz. That actually means it's cycling 450 million times per second. The result is a complete lack of flicker at any frame rate. And the final couple aspects that are worth comparing on that chart between an HMI and a Wasp Plasma Par are the full spectrum nature of the lights. So with the HMI, you have a discontinuous spectrum, a lower CRI. And what that means is that there are going to be certain parts of the visible spectrum, the rainbow of colors as we understand them, that just aren't going to be rendered by this light. This means that if your camera sees something in a certain way, under an HMI, you're going to have a hard time discerning between different shades of red, sometimes with different shades of brown, black. And we've all had the experience where we put on a shirt that we thought was black in our room, we go outside into daylight, and all of a sudden we realize it's navy. Well, it's really the same thing, but for your camera, which is if you want to be able to show the full spectrum of color, this is especially important in rendering the faces of our talent, but also important if we're dealing with brands, certain colors that are required to tell the story. It's very important to have a full spectrum light source. This is why we've all grown so accustomed and so pleased with our incandescent lights. They're a full spectrum light source. The same is true with daylight. Really, the plasma is designed specifically to mimic that daylight full spectrum. So with the Wasp Plasma Par, there's a number of accessories that we're able to show off. But before we go into that, I'd like to actually show a video that really highlights the flicker benefits of plasma. And what we're going to see is a side-by-side comparison between a 400-watt HMI and a Wasp Plasma Par, both being recorded at 1,500 frames per second. Okay, so I think that really highlighted some of the things that we were trying to show, which is basically that you have the advantages of the color, you have the advantages of the low power draw, but you also just clearly have a much cleaner, easier to see image without the flicker that is inherent when you see HMI lighting in slow motion. Before we go back to talking about the technology though, let's talk a little bit about the Wasp Plasma Par itself. So this is a Wasp Plasma Par. As you can see here, it's about a 1x1 box, but a little bit thicker than, say, a panel light from an LED manufacturer. In this box, you're going to have a single point source bulb, but that bulb is so small it's actually embedded into this heatsink here. So what this heatsink is doing is it's pulling almost all of the heat in the fixture into a centralized place. This is really advantageous both as the end user, if you're the technician setting this up, because you know where the heat in the fixture is going to be. And that's going to get about a hot cup of coffee hot. not going to burn you if you touch it. You may not want to hold it for an extended period in your hand. The rest of the fixture, however, is going to be about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, so relatively cool compared to traditional on-set lighting. And most importantly, there's almost no heat coming out of the beam itself. That means you're not going to have any IR interference for your cameras, but probably in your day-to-day life, the way this is going to really benefit you is your talent's going to be much more comfortable. They're not going to be sweating under hot, bright movie lights. This is going to be much easier workflow. Along with that detail, it's probably worth noting that on the back of this is where you have your variable color temperature. That's what this dial is here. And make sure we can see it here. This allows us to adjust our color temperature between 4,800 to 7,000 degrees Kelvin and still have a full spectrum 94 plus CRI that gives us a really, really, really beautiful quality of light and allows us to track along with daylight. Now, it's going to take a few seconds for the color to shift every time we change that dial, so that is something to get used to, but it does allow us to get a really, really accurate rendering of color that really matches the daylight we're shooting under. And as we all know, over the course of the day, our daylight color temperature does shift from warm to cool to direct sunlight, back to cool, back to warm at sunset again. Along with that, as you can see on the back, there is a socket for our header cable, and it's a little bit difficult to see, but right here there's also an LED indicator light. Plasma technology, similar to HMI, does have a small strike time, but we have a green LED indicator on the back, so you're able to know that power is reaching the head. So if you do, it takes about 90 seconds for it to come up to full output. However, the LED will turn on immediately, and you know that you've powered the light effectively. On the front, this is really where we start attaching all of our accessories, and we can start going through those in a little bit. But we have a top clip that's adjustable, pulls to the side, and then here we have multi-stages for mounting lenses, barn doors, scrims, as well as our speed rings, and also a source 4 barrel. Next to that, we have our header cable. And this is a twist locking header cable. So you're able to plug it in and click it in. And this is a DC header cable. So it's actually very safe. You are able to hot swap it so it can be plugged in and out even with the light still on. However, we do always recommend that, unless you have a specific reason for this, to turn off your power supply before it reaches the head. So I think probably another thing to talk about is all those different accessories that I've mentioned. You can see here, this is one of the real benefits of being able to use this low power technology is you now have a light, the equivalent of a very bright HMI, that can be plugged directly into one of your batteries. So what we're showing here is the blue shape 4-point power station. And this is a really great product because it allows you to mount V-mount style camera batteries, and 4 of them in the configuration you see there will actually run a single light for 2 hours and 45 minutes, which is a really long run time. But what's even better is you can actually run 2 of our lights off that power station for a full hour. So that's 2 lights for a full hour run-off battery. And those V-mount batteries are also ones that you can then go ahead and start using for your camera. You can use them around your set. You can use them on your other LED lighting fixtures as well. So it really allows a lot of flexibility. Beyond that, we also have a voltage regulator accessory. It comes in our AC-DC power supply. What that allows you to do is a 3-pin XLR in, and it allows you to run it off of any battery, 18 to 38 volts. So any belt battery or block battery. So we really tried to give that kind of flexibility when it comes to batteries. In the next slide, we can see the other ways that we're able to combine the single light into multiple different applications. So just one Wasp plasma par is able to be combined with a variety of different softboxes. What you see there is a standard rectangular softbox used often in production. We're also able to build each of these lights into multi-lights arrays. What I mean by that is that we can do a double light, which is shown here, which doubles the output, but we also can do a 4-light and a 6-light frame. This allows you to get all the way up to a 1500 watt light that can plug into a wall still, but give you the output equivalent of almost a 4K HMI, which is really an amazing amount of light to actually be plugged into a single wall socket on a single breaker. And then finally, one of my favorite tools is the ability to directly attach a source 4 barrel with its lenses to get a theatrical style spotlight directly out of what is traditionally a par light. So we have really two different kinds of lenses that can be used with this. We have a lens set for pars, but then we also have the full range of ETC Source 4 accessories that can all be used with this light as well. And as you can see here, there's a lot of accessories. We put a lot of emphasis on the idea that if you invest in one light, it really can be a Swiss Army knife, if you will, for your productions, where you can take this one light out, and no matter what the application you're looking for, there's a variety of ways that you can use it. And so we've actually put together a couple slides that will let you see sort of basic different setups that you can do pretty simply with a single light to create a different look, all just using standard accessories with this light. So the first one we're showing here is just the very standard what comes in your kit, which is the 4 lens set, which is a narrow, medium, wide, and super wide, combined with a Wasp plasma par. As you can see here, it's a very punchy, bright light source, but it's got a clean, crisp, single shadow, and it is lighting our subject. But the next one you'll see is combining that lens, exact same lens, exact same light, but now with a softbox accessory. So we're using a 3-foot octagonal softbox that's made for us by Chimera and specifically designed to work with our lights. And as you can see here, obviously it softens the light, spreads the light a lot more, but it's a slightly different look, but it's sort of in a similar vein. The next combination that we use that you can see here is a very traditional setup, but again, it's using the same lens with the same head, but now we're bouncing it into a bounce card. As you can see, this is even more diffuse, but it's getting a very even, nice looking quality of light, bigger eye light on the subject. But again, this is all the exact same light, giving a unique look for this interview. The next one is actually one of my favorite setups, and this is combining the Source 4 barrel with the bounce card. And what I really like about this is you're able to use the ability to cut and shape to actually just fill the entire card with that lens. And that really gives you a very full, large source, and the result is a really flattering, pleasant interview light. People wouldn't necessarily think to use a theatrical spotlight for an interview setup, but the result is you're able to move that light very far away if you need to from the actual interview, but keep the card, that source, that big soft source, as close as you want to. The result is that there's almost no heat on the subject whatsoever, so it's incredibly comfortable because all of the light and even the light source has been removed. But you're able to get a very large source which, with a relatively thin profile, incredibly close to the subject. So this is one of my favorite tricks that we're able to do with the Wasp par. And then the final one that we wanted to show is just a very traditional sort of beauty light setup, often referred to as a book light, where you take the light and you actually can't see the head itself in that picture, but it's in between the frame of diffusion and the bounce card. And so what we have is the light shining directly into the bounce card and then bouncing off the card then through the diffusion frame. The result is basically a double diffused light. It takes what is a very strong, punchy source and makes it a very even, very flattering source. And what's really advantageous about this is that to be able to effectively do this and to create this really beautiful light source, you need a really punchy, strong source to start with. Unfortunately, if you were to take most of your panel lights or a fluorescent light, by the time it went through both layers of diffusion, you wouldn't have the output to really have it be useful anymore. What's really nice about starting with such a strong, powerful source is that you're able to go all the way from that spot that we saw at the beginning to such a diffuse source because you start with so much light output at the beginning. So that sort of summarizes some of the different looks that you can create with this kit. But we think here at Hive that the Wasp Plasma Par is really the most versatile light that we offer. A single light is able to do a variety of different things for a variety of different applications. But again, to recap, the real advantages are the flicker-free nature. If you're shooting anything slow motion, this is the most reliable source for any slow motion cinematography. Then the power savings. With the low power draw, you're able to use multiple heads if you need to, but you're also able to create a lot of different looks with a single light, again, only using 2.5 amps, which is just a really low power draw that means you can be very flexible in a number of situations. And then finally, because we are all bottom line driven in this business, unfortunately, this is a light that can fit within your budget. You're going to be seeing some immediate savings in your initial purchase price over the equivalent light output that you could purchase anywhere else. And most importantly for owner operators, but really for any production, over the course of the production and over the course of the life of the light, you're going to see huge savings both in the lack of bulb replacement, the low power draw, and the reliability of the product. So I thank you very much for your time, and if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to either reach out to OneSource Video or visit our website, Hive Lighting, which is www.hivelighting.com. Thank you.